This is fictional story to bring faith in heart.
Joe laughed like he always did, loud, loose. The guy couldn't even get verified on X if he came back, he joked. It was a line meant to land hard and fast, a jab at algorithms, at belief, at everything we don't take seriously anymore. But Elon didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He looked down. Like the joke had found a place deeper than he expected. Joe blinked. "Elon?" he asked, and then came the words, quiet, unexpected. "I dreamed about him last night." That sentence hung in the air like smoke, and suddenly no one knew where to put their hands. No one knew where to look. "He didn't say anything," Elon whispered, "but I felt forgiven." Forgiven. A word that didn't belong in a room like that. A word that didn't sound like code or capital or conquest. Joe leaned back, and for once he didn't have a comeback. Just silence. The kind that doesn't ask for attention, only understanding, because sometimes the loudest thing in the world is a man with everything, saying nothing. That night, Elon went home alone. No entourage, no tweets, no fanfare, just the echo of a voice that never spoke, and a feeling he couldn't explain. Forgiven. Joe watched the replay later, over and over, listening not to the words, but the pause, that crack in Elon's voice, that moment the mask slipped. Meanwhile, somewhere far from podcasts and power, a child sat in a diner, coloring. Crayon in hand, she drew a rocket, a man floating in space, and another figure just beyond, with arms open wide. She looked up at her grandfather and asked, "Do people forget how to be kind when they get rich?" He smiled, maybe at the question, maybe at how much it hurt to answer. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe they just forget how much it matters." That night, Joe couldn't sleep. Not because of the dream Elon had, but because he wondered what it meant, that Elon of all people needed to feel forgiven, and if he needed it, maybe we all do, even if we never say it out loud. Elon said the dream started in silence, not a room, not a place, just space, endless, heavy, still. He was standing, though there was no ground, floating, though there was no motion, and then there was someone else, not radiant, not glowing, just present, a man, quiet, still, not asking for anything, just there. Elon didn't remember words, only the weight of being seen, not admired, not measured, seen. And suddenly all the noise of his life, the launches, the press, the headlines, the doubts, fell away like scaffolding in the wind. There was no judgment in the man's eyes, no disappointment, just a kind of sadness, and something stronger than sadness underneath. Compassion. Elon tried to speak, to explain, to say he was building the future, trying to save humanity, trying to do it all. But the man didn't need to hear it. And that was the strangest part. He already knew. Elon felt everything he had tried to bury, the ambition that turned into obsession, the control that became distance, the fear behind the fire. And yet, he wasn't crushed by it. He wasn't punished. He was forgiven. That word again, forgiven. And when he woke up, his face was wet. He couldn't remember the last time he cried. Maybe as a boy. Maybe never. He didn't tell anyone at first, not even Grimes, not his team, not X, because how do you explain being undone by a silence, by a gaze? But when Joe made that joke, when Jesus comes back, would he even get verified? Elon couldn't laugh, because he had seen something, or maybe just felt it, a presence that didn't care about platforms or power, only about the heart, and his, for the first time in decades, felt exposed, not in danger, just bare, and somehow loved anyway. The next day Joe walked into a coffee shop on Sunset, same place he always goes, same stool by the window, same black coffee, no sugar, but something about the world felt different, not louder, quieter. He couldn't stop thinking about the way Elon said it. He didn't say anything, but I felt forgiven. It haunted him, not like a ghost, but like a mirror. A few tables over, a boy sat alone, 8, maybe 9, messy hair, wearing a NASA hoodie 2 sizes too big. He was drawing, head down, focused, not on a screen, not distracted, just crayons on paper, the colors simple, the lines honest. Joe watched him for a moment, then looked away. But the boy suddenly spoke. "You know Elon?" he asked, not even looking up. Joe blinked. Yeah." The boy nodded, still drawing. "He's scared." Joe frowned. "What do you mean?" The boy shrugged. "People who build rockets are usually trying to leave something." That hit harder than it should have, because the kid wasn't joking. He wasn't being clever. He was just right. "What's he trying to leave?" Joe asked. The boy finally looked up. Maybe the part of him that thinks he can't be loved if he's not building something. And there it was. Truth, straight from a kid with crayons and wide eyes. No agenda, no platform, just observation and wonder. Joe swallowed hard. "You believe in all that?" he asked gently. The boy smiled, soft and crooked. "I believe people remember love more than they admit, even if they forget how to give it." He handed Joe the drawing. A rocket. A man inside. Another figure floating toward it, arms open. But this time, the figure was drawn with color all around him. Not bright, just warm. Joe held the paper in silence. And for a moment, he didn't feel like a podcast host, or a personality, or a brand. Just a man holding something fragile, like truth, like hope. And maybe that's what forgiveness actually is. Not a lightning bolt, not a sermon. Just someone handing you a crayon drawing and reminding you that you're still worth loving, even if you forgot. Elon didn't plan to say anything. He never does. Control is comfort. Precision is power. But something in him cracked that night, and instead of sending a tweet, he picked up the phone. Joe answered on the second ring. No intro, no preamble, just, "You still thinking about it?" Elon didn't say yes, but the silence did. "I don't know what it means," he said finally. "Not really, just, I can't stop feeling it." Joe didn't press. He just listened. "I've spent my life trying to make humanity multiplanetary," Elon continued, "to solve things no one else wants to touch. But I've never felt this small. And somehow, it doesn't feel bad." Joe let out a slow breath. "Small? Like powerless?" Elon shook his head, though Joe couldn't see it. "No, small like, maybe I was never supposed to carry all of it." A pause, then with something like grief in his voice. "I think I've been building my whole life to escape a question I didn't want to ask." Joe's voice softened. "What question?" Elon swallowed. "If I stopped being useful, would anyone still love me?" The line went quiet, and for once Joe didn't fill the silence with a joke, or a story, or a lifeline. He let the words sit. He let Elon breathe. "I think," Joe finally said, "that kid in the diner was right." "What kid?" Joe smiled to himself. "A prophet with crayons." Elon laughed, just once, a quiet one, but real. Joe continued. "He said people who build rockets are usually trying to leave something." Elon went still. "I think maybe I'm trying to go back," he said quietly. "Back to something I forgot. A part of me that didn't need applause. Just peace. And maybe that's what forgiveness really is. Not a pardon, not a pass. Just a path. Back to who you were before the world told you to become someone else." Elon didn't cry, but he did thank Joe. And before hanging up, he said, "If I ever build a rocket just to come home, I'll name it after him." And Joe didn't laugh. He just whispered, "Maybe that's what we're all trying to do." She wasn't famous, not rich, not verified, just a woman named Marta, who cleaned offices downtown at night and watched people from windows while she mopped their marble floors. Sometimes she'd see Elon pass by, on the screens, in the news, on glowing billboards, sometimes in person behind glass, speaking in rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. But she remembered him from before, years ago, before the suits, before the space talk, when he'd come into her corner cafe with his kids and ask for extra sugar packets to make them laugh. He always looked tired even then, but back then he still looked reachable. One night she found a notebook someone left behind, plain cover, heavy. Inside, a sketch of a rocket, a list of calculations, a quote scribbled at the bottom. "The weight of everything is not mine to carry." No name, no clue who wrote it, but something about it made her sit down in that empty lobby and just breathe. For the first time that night, she didn't feel invisible. That quote stayed with her, because Marta knew about weight. She carried hers in silence. Bills, grief, a son in recovery, a job that stole her time. But that line, "The weight of everything is not mine to carry," it was like permission. Permission to be human, to not fix everything, to be tired, and still be loved. A week later, she passed a young man on her way out of the building. Sharp suit, nervous eyes. He dropped his phone. Papers scattered. People passed by. But Marta stopped. She helped him pick it all up. No hurry, no judgment. When she handed him the last sheet, she smiled and said, "It's okay to need help. Doesn't make you smaller." The young man just stared at her. Sometimes truth comes from polished stages. Sometimes it comes from cracked hands and tired eyes. But it lands all the same. That night, the young man posted her words, and they travelled farther than anyone expected, even reaching a certain man who hadn't smiled all week. And Elon, when he read it, whispered under his breath, "That's her." Because he remembered too. The woman from the cafe, the sugar packets, the quiet kindness he hadn't known he needed. And maybe that's how healing starts. Not in headlines, not in billion-dollar deals, but in a sentence passed from one forgotten soul to another. It wasn't a big event. No cameras, no hashtags. Just a table in a small room set for 5. Elon Joe, the boy with the crayons, Marta, and the man who came with her, her son, clean for 90 days. There was soup, bread, a bowl of fruit in the center that no one touched at first. Joe brought the kid, said he reminded him how to listen, said the world could use more of that. Elon didn't know what to say when he arrived. He didn't want to talk about Mars, or missions, or money. So he asked the boy a question. "What would you build if you could build anything?" The boy looked at him, then down at his plate. "I'd build a table," he said, "big enough for people who feel left out." Marta smiled. Her son reached for the bread, and for a moment no one spoke, because there are some answers that feel bigger than sound. Elon nodded slowly, then whispered, "That's what I should have built first." The meal wasn't perfect. The soup was too salty. The chairs wobbled. Marta's son cried quietly at one point and didn't say why. But they sat. They passed food. They asked each other real questions, and no one reached for their phones. Joe looked around and said, half joking, "I've interviewed presidents, rock stars, billionaires." He looked at the boy. "You're the only one who ever gave me an answer that stuck." The boy just kept eating. No pride. No need for applause. He was hungry, and the food was good. Later, when the plates were cleared and the sun had set behind the blinds, Elon leaned back and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding for years. It wasn't relief. Not exactly. It was something softer. Peace. Not the kind you buy. Not the kind you earn, just the kind you find when someone unexpected reminds you you're still human, still loved, even when you're not building anything. Before they left, the boy handed Elon a new drawing, a long table. Different people sitting at it, some laughing, some crying, all with room in front of them, and in the corner, a small sentence in crayon. Everyone belongs somewhere. Elon folded the drawing carefully, more carefully than he'd held any blueprint, and smiled. That night, he didn't dream of space. He dreamed of the table, and the next morning, he posted nothing, because some things aren't meant to be shared, only remembered. What would you build if it wasn't about legacy, but about love?